Before the world knew him as the internet's most explosive philanthropist and record-breaking creator, Jimmy Donaldson, better known as MrBeast, was just a quiet kid from North Carolina who spent more time inside watching videos than anywhere else. His childhood wasn't filled with fancy equipment, big opportunities, or a supportive fan base cheering him on. Instead, it started in an ordinary house, in an ordinary room, with an extremely ordinary laptop that could barely run editing software. But what separated Jimmy from nearly everyone else's age was an unusual, almost obsessive fascination with YouTube itself. While others watched videos for entertainment, he watched them like a scientist studying an experiment. He wasn't interested in the creators' personalities. He was interested in the formula behind their success. From the moment he uploaded his first video at age 13, Jimmy realized something important. Creating content wasn't just about talent. It was about endurance, creativity, and a willingness to learn faster than everyone else. Those early videos were rough. Shaky commentary, low-quality visuals, inconsistent audio, but they taught him something crucial. No one becomes great by skipping the ugly beginning. Every time he uploaded a video that flopped, he didn't see it as failure. He saw it as data. He began keeping notebooks filled with numbers, view counts, retention graphs, click-through behaviors, and patterns he noticed from creators who rose and fell. He didn't have a mentor. YouTube itself became his teacher. As the years passed, Jimmy wasn't just uploading for fun. He was studying YouTube with an intensity that bordered on obsession. He and a small group of online friends would spend hours every day breaking down the algorithm, analyzing why certain thumbnails exploded while others died instantly. They'd debate titles, emotional pacing, viewer psychology, and how long a video should hold suspense before delivering a payoff. Most teenagers were worried about homework, sports, or weekend plans. Jimmy was worried about how a 2-second change in the intro could increase retention by 3%. His determination wasn't normal, but it was the foundation of everything he would eventually build. By the time he entered his late teens, YouTube wasn't a hobby anymore. It was his entire identity. He dropped out of college because he knew, with absolute certainty, that nothing else in the world made sense for him. It wasn't an easy decision. There were arguments, doubts, money problems, and moments where everyone around him questioned whether he was throwing his life away. But Jimmy felt something powerful, an inner conviction that if he could just keep creating, keep learning, and keep pushing, he would eventually crack the code. And he wasn't wrong. He spent nearly every dollar he earned reinvesting into bigger ideas, better equipment, and experiments that would one day make him the most influential creator on the planet. What makes his early story remarkable isn't overnight success, because there wasn't any. It wasn't luck either. It was the willingness to grind in silence for years, unnoticed and unappreciated, while building a foundation stronger than most people ever see. Jimmy wasn't waiting for a miracle. He was manufacturing one through relentless effort. But what happens when years of failure suddenly lead to one idea that changes his entire life? Jimmy's breakthrough didn't arrive in a dramatic moment of overnight fame. Instead, it came through a strange mixture of experimentation, persistence, and ideas that most people would have dismissed as ridiculous. After spending years uploading gaming clips, commentary videos, and small challenges that barely gained traction, he realized something crucial. The internet rewards extremes. People don't remember average. They don't share normal. They click on things that are absurd, unexpected, or unbelievably bold. So one day, Jimmy challenged himself to create a video so unusual that it couldn't be ignored. That's when he decided to do something almost nobody else was doing at the time. He filmed himself counting from 1 to 100,000, a task so mind-numbing that it took him more than a full day to complete. He uploaded it with no expectation except curiosity. Why would anyone watch something so repetitive? The surprising answer: millions. The video didn't just get views, it exploded. Not because it was polished or exciting, but because it represented something rare: commitment. Viewers were fascinated by his willingness to push himself to such uncomfortable extremes just to entertain strangers. For the first time, the internet saw a spark of what would define Jimmy's entire brand: a willingness to do the absurdly difficult, the unbelievably time-consuming, and the undeniably unexpected. The success of this video didn't transform him into a superstar overnight, but it opened the door he had been knocking on for years. It showed him a glimpse of the formula he had been studying obsessively: go big, go weird, and go all in. This small victory ignited a wave of creativity. Jimmy started experimenting with more extreme concepts, reading every word in a dictionary, watching paint dry for hours, saying a phrase tens of thousands of times. These weren't just stunts, they were psychological experiments that tested how far curiosity could push a viewer. And every time a video worked, Jimmy reinvested his earnings into something a little bigger, a little bolder. He didn't buy new clothes or fancy gadgets. He saved every dollar for the next challenge. He understood something powerful: attention is the most valuable currency on the internet, and reinvesting it builds momentum. Around this time, Jimmy also began assembling the earliest version of what would become his iconic team, a group of close friends who believed in his vision even when no one else did. They weren't employees. They were dreamers who believed that doing things no one else dared to attempt was the secret to breaking through the noise. Together, they brainstormed challenges, filmed for days without sleep, and celebrated every tiny victory like it was a major milestone. The bond they built wasn't based on money or success. It was built on shared passion, shared struggle, and a shared refusal to quit. But with every new video came new pressure. The audience wanted bigger challenges, higher stakes, and ideas that pushed the limits even further. And Jimmy felt it. Every upload felt like a test, a question from the internet asking, "What else can you do?" He knew that if he wanted to grow, he couldn't just repeat the same formulas. He needed to evolve, innovate, and take risks on a scale few creators had ever considered. The stage was set. His mind was sharper, his team was stronger, and his ambition was rising faster than ever. But how did Jimmy go from unusual challenges to the massive giveaways and life-changing generosity that made him a global icon? As Jimmy's channel grew, so did his ideas, but not in the way most creators expand. While many YouTubers upgraded their equipment, moved into nicer spaces, or spent their earnings on personal comfort, Jimmy did something completely different. He gave everything away. Not metaphorically, literally. Every dollar he earned from his videos went straight into the next one. Sometimes that meant buying expensive items just to give them to strangers. Other times it meant handing wads of cash to servers, delivery drivers, or people he met on the street. It didn't matter who they were. What mattered was the reaction, the impact, and the storytelling. Jimmy realized he could turn generosity into entertainment, and entertainment into something even bigger: a movement. His first major giveaway wasn't planned with a marketing strategy or brand collaboration. It started because he asked himself a simple question: what's the most meaningful thing I can do with what I have? So he gathered the little money he had saved, around $10,000, and gave it to a homeless man. No script, no setup, just raw human emotion. The video went viral instantly, not just because it was surprising, but because it felt real, honest, and unlike anything else on YouTube at the time. Viewers weren't just entertained, they were moved. They felt the sincerity behind every word and every action. Jimmy had stumbled on as something powerful. Kindness could be content, and content could create change. But scaling generosity came with problems. Every time he gave more, the audience expected even bigger gestures. And the more extravagant his videos became, the higher the costs rose. Money was flowing out faster than it was coming in. Some nights, Jimmy lay awake wondering whether the next idea would be the one that pushed him over the financial edge. People saw the excitement on camera, but they didn't see the fear behind the scenes, the risk of pouring everything into a video that might not perform well. But instead of pulling back, Jimmy doubled down. He partnered with sponsors, reinvested every cent, and convinced brands to support ideas that seemed impossible. When he couldn't secure funding, he found creative workarounds. The world saw kindness. Behind the scenes was a mastermind of strategy, negotiation, and risk management. Jimmy's friends, now officially part of his growing team, became the backbone of his operations. They filmed with him in freezing temperatures, brainstormed ideas late into the night, and handled chaos that the audience never saw. They weren't just supporting a YouTube channel. They were building a new type of entertainment industry, one driven by generosity rather than ego. And Jimmy treated them like family, because they were the ones who never left. Even when his future looked uncertain, the team experimented with bigger stunts, giving away houses, cars, and even islands. Something incredible happened. Viewers began to trust Jimmy's videos not just as content, but as experiences. People watched because they knew every video would be unpredictable, inspiring, and deeply human. Jimmy wasn't just making YouTube videos anymore. He was creating moments people would remember for years. But with every act of giving came a new challenge. How far could he push the limits without losing the essence of who he was? The more success he achieved, the heavier the responsibility became. He wasn't just a creator. He was becoming a symbol of generosity, a leader of a movement, and a visionary reshaping what online entertainment could look like. But what happens when success grows so big that it becomes its own kind of pressure, and Jimmy must build something even larger than his own channel? As Jimmy's influence skyrocketed, the world began to see that his ambitions stretched far beyond making viral videos. What most people didn't know was that behind the scenes, he was quietly building an entire ecosystem, a network of businesses, teams, and large-scale operations designed to support ideas bigger than anything YouTube had ever seen. His generosity videos were only one part of the puzzle. Jimmy wanted to create a system where he could help millions, not just dozens at a time. And to do that, he had to evolve from a creator into a full-time entrepreneur. His first major expansion came through Beast merchandise, which he envisioned not as simple clothing, but as a way to fund giant, impossible-seeming projects. Every hoodie sold, every shirt shipped became fuel for larger videos, bigger giveaways, and new experiments. Then came Beast Burger, a revolutionary delivery-only restaurant chain that exploded across the U.S. almost overnight. It wasn't just a business. It was a test of how far a creator's influence could reach beyond the internet. Thousands of orders poured in on the very first day, proving that Jimmy's audience wasn't just watching him. They were supporting his mission. But his most ambitious project at the time, and arguably his most meaningful, was Feastables, a brand built with a blend of idealism and innovation. Jimmy didn't just want to sell snacks. He wanted to create a company that stood for quality, creativity, and community. He poured massive resources into building a team, developing flavors, designing packaging, and integrating challenges into the brand experience. Fans weren't just buying chocolate. They were participating in a story. Within months, Feastables became a dominant force in retail shelves across the country, giving Jimmy a powerful new revenue source that he could feed back into philanthropy. Alongside his rising business empire, Jimmy's nonprofit efforts began taking shape with equal intensity. Beast Philanthropy became a full-time charity dedicated to feeding families, providing shelter, and supporting communities in need. Unlike many charities, this one operated with complete transparency. Every dollar went directly toward impact, and every operation was turned into content that inspired millions. What started as a simple decision to give away his earnings evolved into a highly structured mission driven by logistics, strategy, and unimaginable scale. Jimmy wasn't just donating. He was building systems capable of changing lives at scale. Yet, with every new achievement, Jimmy felt the weight of success pressing harder. Magazine covers, global interviews, massive brand deals. Every accomplishment brought even more demand. People viewed him not just as an entertainer, but as a hero, and that kind of expectation can break anyone. Behind the camera, days blurred into nights as he juggled business meetings, charity operations, shooting schedules, and ever-rising production costs. Fans saw the polished videos, but they didn't see the exhaustion, the stress, or the relentless pressure to outdo his previous work. Jimmy often pushed himself past the point of burnout, driven by a belief that he had a responsibility to use his platform for something greater than himself. Despite the chaos, one thing remained unchanged. Jimmy never lost sight of his mission. Whether he was building a restaurant chain, launching a snack company, running a charity, or filming an over-the-top challenge, everything he did had the same purpose: to create good in the world and inspire others to do the same. His success was never about wealth or fame. It was about impact. But even as he built this empire, a question loomed over everything. How long could he push himself before the pressure forced him to confront the biggest challenge of his entire career? The answer lies in the final chapter. The moment when Jimmy faced his toughest battle yet and made a choice that changed everything at the height of his success. When Jimmy Donaldson had become one of the most impactful and innovative creators on the planet, he discovered that the biggest challenges weren't the giant giveaways, the months-long filming schedules, or the immense cost of each production. The toughest battle was happening inside him, a battle that he had quietly carried for years. Behind the high-energy videos and world-changing generosity, Jimmy struggled with his own health, exhaustion, and the weight of being the internet's symbol of impossible positivity. His audience saw a creator constantly pushing boundaries, but what they didn't see was the immense pressure of holding an entire empire on his shoulders. Every upload was expected to be bigger, every idea more outrageous, every act of giving more spectacular. What once felt like creative freedom sometimes began to feel like a responsibility that never paused. For the first time, Jimmy was forced to face a truth he had avoided. Even the strongest mission needs rest. His body, his mind, and his team were running at full speed for years, and burnout was no longer a distant threat. It was becoming a reality. But instead of hiding or stepping back quietly, Jimmy made a decision that reflected the core of who he was. He chose transparency. He opened up to his audience about his struggles, his health challenges, and the toll of maintaining a massive content machine. This honesty shocked many people, but also strengthened the bond he had with millions across the world. Fans didn't admire him because he was perfect. They admired him because he was human, and that humanity became his greatest strength. What makes Jimmy's journey remarkable is that even during his hardest moments, he never abandoned his mission. Instead, he evolved it. He empowered his team more than ever, allowing them to take bigger creative roles. His projects became more structured, more sustainable, and more strategic. Behind the scenes, he started building systems that could operate without depending entirely on his presence. This shift didn't weaken his empire, it transformed it. It allowed MrBeast to grow into something bigger than a single person. His channel, his businesses, and his philanthropic projects became proof that passion can create a movement, and a movement can create meaningful change. Jimmy's story is no longer just about YouTube. It's about proving that kindness can become a business model, generosity can rewrite entertainment, and persistence can turn an ordinary kid with a laptop into a global force for good. His impact expanded far beyond videos, from feeding millions of families to cleaning oceans, planting trees, funding housing projects, and inspiring a new generation of creators who want to change the world, not just chase fame. Jimmy's legacy is a blueprint. Dream wildly, work relentlessly, fail repeatedly, and give generously. And above all, never let the world convince you that one person can't make a difference. Today, MrBeast stands not just as a creator, but as a builder of communities, of opportunities, of hope. His journey teaches that greatness doesn't come from being born talented or lucky. It comes from refusing to stop, refusing to give up when no one is watching, refusing to let fear overpower ambition. What began as a teenager uploading videos in his bedroom became a global phenomenon that redefined what internet creators can achieve. And the most inspiring part, Jimmy himself says he's only getting started. The world has seen his challenges, his businesses, his philanthropy, but the future promises something even bigger. Because if there's one thing his story proves, it's that the power of one determined individual can ripple across the world in ways nobody could predict. And now, the only question left is, what will you build if you commit with the same obsession, heart, and vision? The next story the world remembers could be yours.